We are only dozens of days away from the 2024 federal election. There was recently the presidential debate and the vice presidential debate. One of the topics that was brought up in both of them was reproductive rights. What is your position on reproductive rights, and what candidate would you say had your position?
So, my overall opinion on reproductive rights is a woman should, in almost all instances, have the right to choose what to do with her own body and with the fetus that is growing inside of her. The candidate I felt that conveyed this the most in the presidential debate was Vice President Harris. And in the vice presidential debate, I felt like the candidate who conveyed this the most was Governor Walz. I believe that what's happening now in this country with reproductive rights, it's a tad bit concerning, considering everyone has a mom, everyone has cousins, aunts, grandmothers. For just looking at it from an outsider perspective, with the influential women that were in my life, it is concerning.
What about what Kamala Harris said stood out to you?
She supports Roe v. Wade, which is, for 50 years, was the law of the land. And I have seen throughout the past couple years, Republicans and Republican-led legislatures in states and in the federal government, their positions has turned hostile towards abortion, more so now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned in the Dobbs decision.
How do you feel like Donald Trump's position has pushed you away?
So I'd say more or less Donald Trump's position. He was the one who appointed the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade and who led to the Dobbs decision. I believe the Dobbs decision will be remembered as an awful decision made by the United States Supreme Court. I think that overall the decision of this court has done more harm than good for the women of this country. It has opened up more or less a can of worms that a lot of people thought was just fear-mongering, but it's now shown that there's a little bit of truth to it.
How do you think Kamala Harris will address this issue if she is elected in November?
I think she will definitely take measures to ensure that women have reproductive rights and to have access to that health care that they need and that they desperately do so need. I think that she will take the step of reinstituting and codifying Roe v. Wade into law.
With Kamala Harris, one of the large counter arguments that's being thrown out a lot by right-leaning independents and Republicans in particular is that Kamala Harris is currently a part of the reigning executive administration. Do you see that as a position where she can do something now in the present?
I wouldn't say so, no. And I say that because the powers of the vice president are limited in and of itself. Since Roe v. Wade has been overturned, Vice President Harris has been used by President Biden as sort of the poster child for reproductive rights. As her position as vice president and her position as a woman, she's sort of been used as the poster child by the Biden administration for this.
Would you say the Biden administration has failed Democratic voters on this issue?
I'd say so, yes. I really do believe that the Biden administration has failed them, mostly because I do remember during the 2020 election when Roe v. Wade was discussed and the potential of it, specifically right around the time of the election when Justice Barrett was nominated by then President Trump. There were discussions about would this lead to Roe v. Wade being overturned with essentially a conservative supermajority on the court. I do believe that during the 2 years that the Biden administration was in charge, the administration could have taken steps before then to ensure that reproductive rights were protected.
With Governor Tim Walz being added on to the Harris-Walz ticket, what do you think he adds to this ticket in the realm of reproductive rights?
I think he adds sort of like a sense of respect and a sense of likability to the ticket when it comes to this. His famous quote, the golden rule, mind your own damn business. I think that does resonate a lot with voters specifically. And I've noticed since Roe v. Wade has been overturned that Democratic voters have been, and just voters in general, have been more mobilized behind this issue and behind Democrats in general.
Definitely. Can you point to an instance in where that was the case?
The 2022 midterms, actually. It was a projected just absolute Republican red wave in both the House, the Senate, the gubernatorial races, the state level races, but Democrats actually overperformed significantly to just an amazing level.
Absolutely. What about J.D. Vance's position is a turnoff?
The guy he's kind of just off about his position. There's just something off about it. He has said, I believe in the past, that he does support a national abortion ban. And as we see right now with many of these states that have near complete abortion bans, the results have not been good in states with those bans.
What results do you see as not good with these states that have implemented a ban?
Specifically in Mississippi, the story of the 13, or I believe she was 13-year-old girl that was raped essentially and forced to carry her rapist baby to term. And then in Texas, there are instances of women who have miscarried and essentially have gone septic, who have been waiting to get reproductive care, and they're unable to because either the hospitals can't or they're afraid to perform the procedure necessary to save her life.
Say that imagine I'm a pro-life Republican. How would you start the conversation to really get through your point of view in a way that you'll think will get through?
Well, first, I'd ask you, do you have a daughter? And do you have sister, an aunt, a mother? And then I'd ask you to think of the situation in which she needed that necessary procedure, and to imagine an instance where she had no access to it or had no means to get to it. And could you, as a pro-life Republican, live with yourself knowing that your position that you supported led to harm being done to your daughter, your mother, your sister, or your aunt?
Awesome. I'd ask you just one last question. Where do you get your news from? And then how often do you check that source?
So I do get my news from some of the more mainstream outlets. I do fact check around, like I bounce around. Like if I see something on CNN, I'll check it from MSNBC, Fox News to see if they're reporting on the same thing, and then I'll compare, and then I'll generally try to pull everything together and kind of articulate it in a way in my head in which I can understand.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was awesome.